Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of Oxygen Not Included. This is the new roguelike survival management simulator game from Clay Entertainment, the creators of Don't Starve and Shank and a bunch of other great games that I'm a big fan of. This just came out on Steam this week. I think it's about 5 days old at this point, and I've spent a couple hours checking it out, just familiarizing myself with all the systems in it, and as always, you guys know I love management games, so I wanted to bring it to you here on YouTube. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump in, and I'll show you guys what the game's all about. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do before we even get to land in the meteor is to pick out our starting team. And we can randomize them, but we don't get to choose their stats individually. So these attributes are going to determine how they perform different tasks within the colony we're going to be building, as well as shows us some of their traits, which will affect what tasks they can do, as well as like some downsides there may be to the characters. And then they have some additional information here, like what kind of food they'll happily eat, what happens when they get really stressed out, etc. So to start out, Grossman here, I'm actually a big fan of his starting stats. This is fantastic, good spread, pretty high numbers, as well as Twinkle Toes is what's given him the bonus athletics, and Yokel means he can't do research, but really, there's a lot of really bad negative traits, and Yokel is probably one of the better ones, so we're going to keep Grossman for sure. Bonnie here, I am less sure about. Her stats are kind of sparse, and Bottomless Stomach is actually kind of a pain in the ass. So I think we're actually going to re-roll her and hope that we can get someone, with maybe a little bit better, a little bit better stats. Okay, so we'll hold on to Ruby here for a little bit. However, we may end up re-rolling just because the stats are pretty similar to Grossman's starting stuff, but we'll see what we get with Travaldo's re-roll here, because this is a terrible attribute roll. Whoa. So this is an interesting one. One in everything is not bad. It's not great either, though, because you can level up skills. That's what learning's all about, so people can get better at stuff anyways. I'm thinking creativity, though, is one that we don't have any points in besides this guy, which makes it kind of nice. This does, however, mean cooking and construction. We don't have really any skills in, so I don't think it's worthwhile. Let's re-roll Ruby, though, because I like having this creativity in medicine, because medicine in particular is a nice one to have later on. Let's see if this Ruby is any better. Less athletics, which is movement speed. Don't care too much about that. However, you know, this is a pretty good spread of stats. More in creativity, though. It kind of makes me want to re-roll. No, we'll re-roll again, just because we don't want to be focused in the same heavy stats here. Enough with the creativity. And now tinkering. Give me something original. Something different from these other guys. We're getting some bad luck here. Tinkering again. This guy's got a bunch of construction, a bunch of learning, and some medicine. And irritable bowel. A little longer than usual to use the bathroom, but he learns really fast, which we see here. I'm okay with this. We will start with this team. We got Grossman, Frankie, and Max. This should be fun. And, our colony name is Dwelling. I don't know about that. This is our first colony. It's gonna be perfect. We'll call it Utopia, the perfect world. Alright, so here we are. This is the meteor that we have crash landed into, or asteroid, excuse me. Our stupid duplicants don't know how they got here. We're gonna start out by pausing and just taking a look at our spawn point here. So wow, this is a pretty cool spawn. I actually like this a lot. We have a little bit of algae here, which is gonna be important for generating oxygen early on, but most importantly, we have just a massive resource of copper and also coal, which is really good for building later on, and there's even more up here. Also, all of these blue areas, these are pockets of oxygen, which is really important because it means when we're expanding, we'll be able to breathe in the areas we break into. It's not a bunch of vacuums or carbon dioxide pits like over here where it's going to poison our dudes. Okay, so first things first, we got to expand. Let's push this wall out to the right a little bit. Excuse me, dig tool. I think right about, we don't need to go too far just to start out, so we'll give them just a little task. They can start going, and we'll go up to max speed because it's the only way to play. We can pause if we need time. And while they dig through this, we're going to want to start putting down some basic stuff. We want a storage compactor for sure. Once they make some room here, we'll be putting down cots right away because stress is a very important stat that we'll be monitoring throughout the playthrough. It makes people have terrible stress responses like vomiting, destructiveness, all kinds of crazy shit that you may have seen in the character sheets earlier. So we want to keep everybody happy and stress-free, so we need to make cots right away and also build an outhouse that is separated from the rest of our build area. I'm thinking maybe just over here we'll just build a little outhouse. In fact, I think we'll just dig that out right away. Let's do it like, this first, because I want to keep this somewhat sort of symmetrical. And we'll dig this out, and we can put a manual airlock in between. Once we get our first bit of copper, we'll be able to start doing airlock stuff. So what I'm thinking is 2 airlocks here and here, and then this is going to be our main shaft that goes down into all these areas. You can see there's a vacuum here, not too concerned though, because we have oxygen and oxalite, which is an ore that constantly gives off oxygen and slowly loses weight until it vanishes. And I'm fairly confident that the oxalite will fill this vacuum almost immediately. So what I'd like to do now is start building those ladders. So we'll go straight down. We probably don't need to go that far just to start out. Let's just go down to here. And then we'll dig these out, this area out. And we will also, we'll leave this mealwood for now, but we're going to harvest this. We'll uproot all this stuff for some planters later on. Also, now that we've gotten our first metal, we can build airlocks, so we'll definitely want to kind of get these areas separated, because that will also allow us then to start putting down the important stuff. So first up, before we forget, get our cots going, and then also an outhouse. What's that? Well, we don't have to wait, because it'll come second anyways. So we're building the outhouse here so they have a place to go to the bathroom. The reason it has its own little room here is because this is a game all about managing gases and fluids, and there are a lot of polluted fluids and gases that are byproducts of using the restroom, unsurprisingly. So we want to keep it separate so that dirty oxygen, polluted oxygen, does not make its way into this area. However, it is worth noting we're going to want some kind of oxygen generation, at least nearby here. Otherwise, you can see it's already got carbon dioxide filling up the bottom here where people have been breathing. It's worth noting carbon dioxide always settles to the bottom because it is more dense than oxygen, so it's almost always right where your people are. We just want to make sure it's not like right at the bottom here, because then it can actually cause them to like wake up from sleeping, fail to do tasks, etc. You have to run away and gasp for air, which you will see. Okay, so we actually have done a pretty good job, I think, of getting all of our basic needs up right away. I mean, it helps that we got a really cool spawn, but all the same, still pat ourselves on the back a little bit. We can also start kind of digging in a little bit here. We're going to be happy that we built all this stuff out of out of tiles later on when we're running piping and electricity. But for now, let's go ahead and set this storage compactor to accept all kinds of material except for no, everything for now. We haven't discovered dirty, smelly dirt, polluted dirt, yet. So we want to make sure it doesn't get stored in the storage compactor next to where we all sleep, or it's going to get stinky, which causes that same polluted oxygen we want to avoid. Okay, so once we're done filling these areas out, we're going to want to just sweep all this shit up before it becomes a problem, because there are actually enemies that spawn at night that I'm sure we'll be seeing soon that will eat resources that you leave laying around, which can be a huge pain in the ass. What's nice, though, is we just mined so much metal that we probably aren't going to have to mine more metal for a little bit. However, we are going to need to build some more ladders, because I want this algae. Algae is really important for oxygen generation. I don't think we have any yet, and we don't really have any great pockets except for up here of it. And we have a little bits along here, but no great resources of it, which we really do need so that we can keep people breathing. Oxygen is the most important thing. There's a reason the game is called Oxygen Not Included, because that's the thing that I always forget about and ends up killing my colony off. I run out of algae, everybody suffocates. It's no good. We're going to try and avoid that here as long as possible. Later on, we'll reinforce the ceilings and stuff of this with more tile, but it's not really necessary yet. Down here, I'd like to reinforce all this with tile, actually sooner rather than later, though, because this is going to be where we generate all of our power. That's right. Research, power generation, all kinds of sweet stuff in this game. I really like it. You can really tell, though, that it kind of wears its inspiration on its sleeve. You can tell from the art style, definitely, that it's a clay game, very reminiscent of Don't Starve, although obviously very different take, more cartoony, brighter colors and all that. But just kind of the art style, you can tell it's similar. And a lot of the same kind of ideas of, like, survival, but also, like, research to unlock more stuff as you progress. And there's not a ton of stuff. Remember, the game is still in early access, so, you know, you do eventually run out of stuff to research, but it does take a fair while, and, you know, you're being beset by everything around you that whole time, so they keep you active, and it definitely is not something you're going to beat on your first playthrough. I have not quite gotten to all of the research on a colony yet. Soon, though. I hope to do it soon. Maybe this playthrough. We'll see. Alright, for now, though, we've got all of our tasks pretty much done. You can see all of our guys going to sleep here. We can plan while they sleep, since it's not like anything important's going to happen. I'm thinking next, we definitely need let's do another 2 storage compactors, because I ain't messing around with them leaving all this shit around. This is the enemies I was talking about, by the way. These guys will eat resources laying on the ground unprotected. No good. Okay, so it's day again. We're going to build these storage compactors right away. There are, just so you guys know, I don't really have to wait for every single task to be finished, though I like to get some level of completeness. There are ways to speed things up. You can use this prioritize button here that I didn't know about for the longest time to say, like, hey, building these is a level 8 priority, not a level 5. And they'll prioritize that over any other level 5 priorities, which could be anything from plunging the toilet to building a ladder to mining, whatever. By default, everything is 5. But yeah, you'll see later on especially, we'll start using prioritization a lot because there's just so much going on. Now, here's another neat trick that I did not know about. You can copy settings for these storage containers, so anything accepted by this is now accepted by these. You just select the button, and then you can copy and paste by just clicking on the other ones that you want the settings on. Alright, here's all the shit we've dug up. This is looking good. It is ready, I think, for us to install some power. Excellent. Let's put down our little hamster wheel. And spacing is pretty important here because you got to think about future expansion. So I like to leave a gap here, and then we're going to have a battery. Then we'll have another gap, and then our first research station. Do I want to have one more gap? I do. Nope, I don't. We'll see. Because the research station takes up 2, sorry. So let's grab stations here, research station, and plop it down right there. And you can see we wired everything up with electricity, so once we get power, which can be stored in the battery, it'll start feeding into this research station. Pretty soon here, we're also going to need to use some power to start generating food, because you can see here how much food we have left in the ration box. 14 more kilograms. You can also tell by the little meter. Eventually, we're going to need to produce our own food to keep people going, which is actually one of the bigger struggles. Fortunately, though, the current update is the agricultural update, which added in a bunch of farming stuff, which is really important for that. Oh, by the way, I suppose I should... I talked about how important oxygen was and then promptly forgot that I deliberately built these ladders for this algae. So let's make sure that we are harvesting the algae so we can start oxygen generation. Because as you can see, like I said, you slowly lose mass on these, or weight, I guess, I don't know, on these oxalite ores until they are nothing. And they're putting out oxygen the whole time, but then they slowly decay and they'll vanish, and eventually this is actually going to open up, which is kind of problematic. I'm sort of tempted to just put some tile here and block this off immediately. In fact, I'm glad I talked to you guys about that, because we're going to do exactly that. Can they unreachable? We need to build a ladder. Snap. I cannot build a ladder here. Okay, let's do this. Mine that out. Build a ladder here. Perfect. Sorry, that's really important because all that carbon dioxide is going to fall right into where they sleep. That is, whew, cutting it kind of close here. Let's, here's a good example of when you can use prioritization. Priority 5, except for this food is not priority 5. Okay, great. Now we're more protected. We've bought some more time. Once this vanishes, we'll block that off too. I ain't messing around with that carbon dioxide, at least until we can get way, way, way more research done. Eventually we can like scrub it from the air and all that, but at the moment we can't do barely anything. We are, however, probably ready for another replicant. So you can see here, duplicant. You can see here that the duplicants, once every like 3 days or so, you get another one, or rather you get a choice of one of 3. So these ones we cannot re-roll, so we get to decide if any of them are worth, adopting into our community, or otherwise we can just reject them all and wait another 3 days, and there's really no upside or downside. It's worth noting it is not always worth taking someone. So in this case, I kind of want to take this Ruby, even though we're going to change Ruby's name. You can be Fred. Yeah, so Fred has good stats, no major minuses. I want more digging. I'm happy with this. We're going to print Fred. Great. Here comes Fred. All right, we're paused. I was like, am I lagging in a game that's like less than a gigabyte? Fortunately, no. So yeah, now we've got Fred who's joined our colony, and the only important thing we don't want to forget here is we need to immediately build another cot for him so he has somewhere to sleep. Also, these storage compactors are only here temporarily. Some of you might be like, hey, so those storage compactors, you know that they're decreasing your decor by a whole bunch, -9 in a 2-tile radius, which makes the people in these cots miserable. Well, you're right, and I should probably address that, but I'm not going to yet. Eventually, though, I'll be moving them downstairs where the decor is going to be kind of bad anyways. So yeah. Also, we're going to dig this plant up now because it is just in the way. Also, we can start doing some research, which we actually need to do almost immediately. Let us pause time here for a moment and take a look at the research tree. So this is all the stuff that's currently in the game for research, and each one of these little squares here is a building you can make. So to start out, farming is always a very solid choice. I'm kind of tempted to do liquid piping because I really like sanitation a lot. It lets you build stuff that can purify air, polluted oxygen, as well as a lavatory that makes it so you don't have to deal with the outhouse anymore, and the shower, which is cool too. But I think we're going to start out with farming all the same because we get the algae terrarium, which allows us to recycle carbon dioxide. And at the moment, we have no way to deal with carbon dioxide, so it's probably the most important. Because even though we have a good amount of oxygen coming in, even from this oxalite up here, that's not getting rid of carbon dioxide. It is still here. You can see when I'm hovering down here, you'll notice under my cursor, oxygen, carbon dioxide flickering back and forth. That's because there's a mix, and we don't want that. Once this research is done, we can put down an algae terrarium, and then that will start soaking up the carbon dioxide and actually outputting a little bit of oxygen, which is great. We want to do that as soon as possible. For now, however, this area is not getting any bonuses of oxygen and has a low concentration, and is a good place to demonstrate our first oxygen generator, the algae deoxidizer. Plop this guy down right by the ladder. That way a little bit of the oxygen can flow up. And make sure we wire it, of course. There's our power and electrical wires. Boop. Now it should be part of the circuit. And once this is complete, they'll load it full of algae, and it's just going to start pumping out a ton of oxygen. Now, pay attention to this thing because it's really important. It's way, way better than the thing we're researching for raw oxygen generation. This outputs it's like 300, kilograms of oxygen a second? 500 grams, gallons, I don't know. It's outputting a ton of oxygen, way, way, way more than the algae terrarium does, but it does not get rid of carbon dioxide. So you kind of want to have both. In this case, probably only need an algae terrarium down here because again, carbon dioxide falls. So it's gonna, since there's no airlock in here, it's gonna flow down this ladder. Eventually we're gonna move these ladders around and seal more of this off, but for now this is fine. All right, let's pause. We haven't given our guys anything to do, kind of wasting our food and time. They are researching, but that's not quite enough. Let's build a microbe musher. We're going to need this pretty soon. This is how we are going to make really shitty food, which you'll see soon enough. Let's go ahead and wire it up. And is there anything else important here for us to grab? I'm trying to think. We're doing not great on storage. Maybe we should move our storage down here now. Oh, you know what? Here's what we should do. We should build a manual airlock up here. Let's do it right about here. And then we'll build a ladder that goes down into this water. This is going to give us a source of water, even though we don't have a pump yet. Eventually we can pump this water out. We can flow it down into all these other reservoirs and put a pump at the very bottom if we want. But also it's going to give us the opportunity to you can just vacuum up water and use it for a bunch of stuff, like our algae terrarium. So we need to have a source of water, preferably one that's not full of carbon dioxide like this one up here. Down here, though, sweet, sweet oxygen and a little vacuum, but mostly oxygen. Worth the risk. Okay, so this little area is done. Just got to mine out this. And once this ladder is done and we have our source of fresh water, I think we are going to call our first episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm really, really a big fan of this game. I'm excited to do several series on it. I kind of want to see how far we can get. If we fail, don't worry. There will probably be another episode. However, I'm fairly confident that we can make it pretty darn far in this. I think I'm going to say, how many cycles in are we? 4? I think we can make it to 40 cycles at least. Let's find out, but for now, if you guys enjoyed the episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below so that I know. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.